Okay, I think we should be good. Hopefully, maybe, possibly. I mean, everything says it's fine. Okay. Very good. Very good. Hello. Oy. What a day. What a day. What a week. What a life. Oy.
Patrick Lee Gibson would.
Let's... Alright. Alright, let me catch up with chat really quick. Will not make next week's live stream. We'll be out exploring the islands. Oh, that'll be awesome. Well, I hope you have a wonderful time with that. Are you allowed to be jealous? That's a very weird question. I mean, jealousy is a very human emotion. I wouldn't see why you wouldn't be allowed to feel like that. Yeah, I've actually never gone fishing. That is something that I really wish I did when I was younger, but you know, it's all right. I'll be sure to do it at some point in my life. Yeah, yeah, I get that. I get that. I'm just reading through the comments so far. What a day, week, life. Fishing would be a lot of fun. I just want to do more outdoorsy things collectively. Like, recently as I've mentioned in the past, I've gotten into trap shooting, and I would like to get into skeet shooting at some point. Fishing equals squishy worms. Hi, Daniel and chat. Hello. It's wonderful to have you here. Um, yeah, I I really enjoy doing outdoor activities, and I recently started doing trap shooting and would like to get into skeet shooting, but I would love the opportunity to just go camping more and build fires, enjoy waking up to nature. Some of my favorite moments in recent years has just been traveling into Big Bear and just spending some time up there, being snowed in, and just enjoying everything around me. I, I just love being outside, and that says a lot since I'm absolutely a person who recharges and feels much more comfortable inside and does not really care for naturally engaging with other people in the world, which is all the more reason why I want to go outside more, all the more reason why I want to interact with people, better my social skills, go outside, engage with outdoor activities, things like that. Crazy old bird lady in the house. I hope you're doing well, Catherine. Thank you so much for being here. Uh, in the safe part of North Carolina, is there something happening? Uh, do you live in a big city then? Not stalking? Yes, presently my residence is in the greater Los Angeles area. But I would love to be able to change that at some point. I would really just there was only one time in my life when I had the fortune of leaving the country to study abroad, and I went to Germany to do that. And it completely changed my life, and the way that I view engaging with the world. I was very content just living in California, but then I started traveling to different states and I started learning about how different people engage with society. But then it really hit me like a bag of bricks when I went to Germany and not everybody spoke English. Surprising. But being able to engage with a different culture, engage with a different view of the world meant so much to me. And it completely altered my perception and goals in my life. So something that I really want to do is travel to Japan and live out there for at least a few years, and just experience life over there and understand the culture environment. I'd love to be able to visit Korea as well. And ultimately, I just want to travel around. I want to see China, Malaysia, the Philippines. I'd love to visit South America with Brazil, Chile, etc. And I'd love the opportunity to travel through Africa as well, and pretty much travel the whole world, but I really want to start with Japan. Just because I really love Japanese culture, Japanese food, and the Japanese people that I have met have been very insightful in terms of their outlook on the world. And I'm very intrigued to experience that for myself. Oh, that's right, the hurricane. I was so focused on the hurricane hitting Florida that I completely forgot that it started moving up. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you're safe. Um, Maybe we chat about Jeff Castellucci today. Yeah, I mean, feel free to comment on whatever it is that you'd like to talk about. Uh, I think he's a great vocalist, and he's got full control of his voice, and he has a beautiful natural resonance. And yeah, I think he's wonderful. So feel free to go off. um, our mountains were devastated by Hurricane Helene. I'm gonna go with Helene. My parents have been without power since last Friday. Oof. Many lives. Yeah, I saw that on the news. I occasionally see some of the news outlets or whatever that's coming through my feed, and it's tough. It is devastating to see. I remember I visited New Orleans in, I want to say 2017, and that was roughly 7 or 8 years after Hurricane Katrina, I think, and or even maybe even more. I think Hurricane Katrina was '09, or maybe it was '04. I forgot. I'm sorry, but they were still rebuilding from that. Yeah, just seeing firsthand the devastation that hurricanes can bring is terrifying, and it's seeing lives lost because of it is tragic, and there's no other word, at least in my view, to really describe that. So I'm very fortunate that there are many people who are able to get out of that and be safe, or are fortunately beyond the hurricane's road of impact. My best friend's family is still without power. Ooh, yeah. Like there have been a handful of times when my residence has been without power due to weather events, but it was never on hurricane levels. So it's like just in terms of fearing for your own safety and your family's safety from events that are completely unpreventable, you know, it's a terrifying feeling. And just to make matters worse, you have to do it without power. You know, it's all the more reason to be as prepared as possible, but, you know, you can only do so much. So, you know, I'm surely hoping that many people and their loved ones are doing everything they can to keep themselves and others safe. Did you get here in time for the chat? Well, Lori, you did. Welcome. They call me a crazy cat lady because I have 8 cats. You know, you enjoy whatever makes you happy. I really love being around cats, but unfortunately, I am allergic to cats. You know, I love both dogs and cats. I find qualities in both that make me very happy. My partner's cats are a couple of the derpiest cats I've ever been around. But they're delightful, and they're always in your face, in your business. But growing up, I had a dog. I loved my dog more than anyone. And he lived a very long life, 18 years, roughly. And he was like my little brother. I miss him so much. But I love dogs. Dogs make me so happy. I connect more with dogs. But it doesn't mean to say I don't like cats. I do enjoy cats. I just have to take allergy medication when I go around them and wash my hands constantly. One word. Scar. He shattered my heart with Durin's song, then scared the living poo Scar. And that roar, oh my gods and goddesses. Yeah. Jeff performing Be Prepared was quite wonderful. And I actually got a comment on, I believe it was Friends on the Other Side, where they were actually thrilled to not see Jeff be a villain. And I understand that. And that's something that is very common, however. When storytelling, even in opera, the bass voices or the baritone voices are typically the villains. Mainly because something dark feels, or something deep feels dark and demonic and evil. It's very similar to animation in that way, where you draw sharp edges on a character to symbolize more of a blade's edge, kind of creating something dangerous. Whereas with more lighthearted, charming characters, you draw them more bubbly, you draw them more rounded. And most people take these qualities and just translate them into palatable forms of media, I'll say. But yeah, it was really nice being able to see Jeff as Scar. His voice is just, it's like velvet. Did you get the chance to see Peter Barber's chat with the fairy voice mother? Love her channel. She is more scientific with her musical analysis. If you actually didn't see, I posted one comment, in their live chat. I want to say about 20 minutes into it. I was lucky enough to see the interview, at least for a period of time before I started having to record my own content and make stuff. Speaking of which, quick side tangent. This next video that I'm going to put out, it's another voice play video, but it took me so long to edit it. And I'm making new thumbnails with stuff. I'm exploring new types of editing styles, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch and to engage with. I really enjoyed making it because I put on a character mask for it, even though I still give my honest thoughts and opinions about who I am as a person. I was able to put on more of a character mask for it, and it was so much fun to do. I really enjoyed making that kind of content, but I don't know how often I'm going to be able to do that, because with my uploading schedule, creating that kind of content took a lot of time, but I was really excited about that. But to answer your question, yes, I did see part of the interview. I even reached out to the fairy voice mother and I asked her if she would be willing to do some kind of YouTube something, whether an interview or just a conversation or something similar to the Peter Barber one, actually, where we can talk about music, but pretty much it's, what are your interests? Tell me about you as a person. I'm excited to learn about you and what got you into music, or what got you into your hobbies, or just things like that. I reached out to her. I didn't get a reply. I honestly don't expect replies when I reach out to people, but it would be really cool if she got back to me. But yes, again, to answer the question, I did see part of it. Both Peter and I think her name is Lolly are very charming people. Dogs have owners, cats have staff. That is absolutely one way of analyzing those relationships. Closest I ever came to a hurricane was my honeymoon in '99 in Disney World. Hurricane Floyd, I remember that one. Came through and they shut down the park. Yeah. I've seen many videos of rainstorms, thunderstorms, lightning strikes at Disney World, but I've never seen a hurricane through there. So that must have been a very unique experience, and even though I'm sure it was terrifying, to a certain degree, I'm envious that I wasn't there to experience that. The meow from Be Prepared. I didn't see it in the actual video, but I was told after the fact, so I looked it up. I saw it, and I thought that was hysterical. Voice play always does very just small, charming things like that, and I thought that was cute. One of the things I love most about Jeff is when he sings high and then drops so low in one line, then the growl is everything. Yeah, it's a wonderful feeling. It's like a whiplash kind of feeling. Don't forget to hit thumbs up. Thank you. I would deeply appreciate that. Yeah, something that I've been focusing more on is, outside of just growing the channel with better editing as a whole, and creating more captivating videos in general. I mentioned in last week's live stream that's something that I really want to do is put out some just full original content. And one of the things I remember I got praised for in many of my videos was my honesty about things. So I was thinking about perhaps doing full-on conversations with myself and leaving them open for discussion and comments where... And none of the things I talk about are hills that I'm necessarily going to die on. So I always do have an open mind when I come into these topics. It's just how I view things presently. And the idea of it is that I take something that people are very passionate about and I spark very, very hot debates about it. Something that I've come to realize is many of my own views on the world, while are generally very reasonable, also come into many points of contention with many communities of people. I've mentioned in past videos and live streams that I don't really conform or identify myself with any particular group of people. I am very much I like to consider myself more of a freer thinker, just in the idea of I take an idea, I learn as much about that idea as possible. I learn how other people view that idea and concept or whatever it is. And based off of my own self-built set of characters, principles, and ethics, that I translate all of that information as to how I feel about a certain thing. And something I've noticed a lot of is generally human beings are social creatures and we want to be liked by our peers, which typically means harboring the same opinions as our peers. And if we don't have the same opinion as our peers, then we have the same opinion as other people that are outside of our immediate milieu. So, but it's very difficult to actually take an idea, process it through your own psyche and your own set of principles, and understand how is it that I truly feel about this, even if I'm completely alone in terms of thinking about this particular thing in this particular way. I know that I am at least being true to myself in the present moment. And I think there's a real beauty and strength to that. So I was thinking about creating content that circles around that kind of idea. But I have no idea how I'm possibly going to make that interesting, because it would just be me talking directly for several minutes, if not an hour plus, about particular topics. So I need to find a way to make that both interesting and palatable. Because I am a very blunt and very harsh person, and I tone all of that down when I'm doing videos. People think that I'm, like, especially in terms of some of the artists that people really love, like Tommy or Dimash, people think that I'm being unnecessarily harsh, or that my opinions are unjustified. And to be honest, I'm being extremely kind in comparison to what I can say. I want to make sure that people know that ultimately I do enjoy the performance of things, but there's a reason why there are several Dimash videos that aren't on my channel. There's a reason why there's several videos of other artists that I've already reacted to that aren't on my channel. And that's mainly because when I've recorded the videos for them and I listened back to them, I knew that it would just be met with just an enormous uproar of, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't, like, you obviously just hate this thing, or, because, keep in mind, especially when I went to Germany, but this has been throughout my entire musical career, I've noticed that most people, especially people that engage with music but are not musicians, have no idea how to handle criticism. They have no idea what criticism is. They either take it as you're either complimenting the artist or you're insulting the artist. There's no in between. It's very dualistic, binary thinking, and it drives me nuts. Because the idea of it is, if you are a true musician, in my view, you are constantly looking for ways to improve. And the only way to do that is to get perspective from other musicians, especially non-biased musicians, people that are not your friends, people that are not your family, people who have no relationship to you are the people who are most likely willing to give you very direct and honest advice about where you are, especially if you have years of experience and understanding of the field that you are in. And that goes for any field or any art. You know, if you want to become the best engineer in the world, for example, and you come up with, like, let's just use roller coaster engineer. You come up with a design for a roller coaster. It's really cool. It's really fun. It works very well. You give it to your professors. They give you a good job. But you meet the most prolific roller coaster engineer in the world, and that prolific roller coaster engineer says, this is very base. You know, you have everything worked out and everything looks, you know, clean and polished and fine, but there's no real unique intrinsic value to it. There's no, or whatever the case might be. And that criticism might sound harsh, but if that really prolific, profound roller coaster engineer said, these are my thoughts, and this is how I think you can make this concept even better, and you take it home, you take what you've learned, and you expand upon it, you know, like, greatness doesn't come from compliments. You look at Eminem's story, for example, where you have a very rough upbringing and all of that resentment and rejection just built him into one of the greats. You have people like John Coltrane, another great example. You have people like David Goggins or Terry Crews, or people who have had enormously tragic or rough upbringings that have ultimately led to, I understand that the world is not a nice place. As a matter of fact, you look at the natural world for what it is. If humans weren't involved at all and you just observed the natural world, and you have predators, you have prey, you have the natural flow of the ecosystem. And it's very dark and very cruel, and a lot of things aren't fair. But at the same time, I think that's all the more reason why I really love humanity as a whole, because we are willing to engage with each other and better each other, better ourselves, and to reach new heights, untapped, unlimited, and limitless potential through honest criticism, just as long as that criticism comes from a good place. The criticism cannot come from a place of bitterness or acrimony. It cannot come from a place of hatred or even true appreciation or joy. You know, it has to come from a place of understanding of what it is you're working with and saying, this is what I really liked about it. This is what I didn't really like about it. These are the things that I'm sure audiences would love that I personally do not love, and being able to separate the two. And in something like the case for Dimash has mastered a variety of vocal styles, and that is exceptionally difficult to do. He's the only vocalist I can currently think of who has that level of technical mastery. And on top of it, he has a very resonant voice. He's a wonderful performer and a very extensive range. And he constantly polishes his instrument by practicing and making sure that his voice is really nice and clean. And I really love that for him. And a lot of people really love his music and his style of singing. It really moves them on a deep emotional level. And I think that that's wonderful. I think any artist that is capable of moving even a single person with their voice and with their own skill is such a beautiful thing. And the fact that he's able to do this on a global scale is even more admirable. You know, Dimash absolutely has my highest respect as a musician, but that doesn't mean that I really love his music in comparison to other musicians. Like, I've mentioned many times in some of his videos, I do not like whisper singing. I do not like the sound of whispering. I do not like ASMR stuff. None of that appeals to me. So when he sings in that very whispered tone, it drives me nuts. But it doesn't mean to say that I don't recognize the value in it, the skill that goes into it, and that people really do enjoy it and appreciate it. So for that reason, I'm not the kind of reactor that's going to continue watching those types of videos, because it's not music that I inherently love listening to. The videos that I put out are videos that I really enjoy, are videos that I find to have a lot of really great sound quality to them, that are very well composed or very well arranged or both, that have a lot of technical features that I can dive into more, but still try to keep it as palatable for non-musicians as possible. If you want more extensive, in-depth analyses, I could do that, but I already know that there are channels out there that already do that. The Very Voice Mother, for example, would be one of them. The Charismatic Voice is another. So I just want to reach out to non-musicians and just appreciate music in a way that's more for the common man. And that's exactly what I want to do with these videos. And I feel like the best way to do that is to show that I really do love engaging with these artists. I really do love engaging with this type of music. It's just not all music from these artists really appeals to me. And it's being able to separate, okay, I know for a fact that if I criticize this artist, people are going to misconstrue that as jealousy or bitterness towards them, or envy, or whatever the case is. And I've mentioned this in past videos. Bitterness and envy and jealousy are not necessarily bad things. I think everything that defines a human being as a human being with all of their emotions have all been structured from base survival instinct. Like, what's the utility of jealousy? Well, maybe in ancient times, we had small tribes of people, and we see one tribe have more resources because they're more closely located to a natural spring. And we see that, we feel this jealousy of, well, our lives could be a little bit better if we were more close to that spring. So you go in, you invade, you get the spring. And now your lives have become considerably better through the act of survival of the fittest, to gain resources to that spring. I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do, but I'm just trying to paint a picture of what it is that I'm trying to convey. In just this idea of a lot of emotions and feelings that human beings typically reflect as these are negative, I should not be feeling these feelings, I push back against. All of these things are feelings that we should be feeling, and we should be able to communicate them in a way that's real and authentic and relatable, understandable. Trying to repress or take away these feelings from our character doesn't make any sense to me. And I think ultimately makes us more miserable because we're wondering, I know I'm a good person. Why is it that I'm feeling so much bitterness in terms of our internal monologue? Nothing that we would actually admit to others, unless you actually do have the inner strength to admit that to others. And it's just a whole process of what does it mean to be a genuinely honest, compassionate, and caring person, but still have a tremendous amount of inner strength and physical strength to take on the world. And it's a very fine line and a very nuanced road to walk, and each of us has to have, and there's no guidebook for it, there's no manual for it, so each of us has to figure it out as we go, and it's a very terrifying feeling to go through, or terrifying life experience to go through, I should say. But I think that is what makes life very exciting and enriching, is the fact that nobody really has it figured out. Some people have much more success than others, but that's just because they have success in that one area of their life. Are they truly happy in every sense of the word? You know, you look at the super wealthy and you ask, okay, well, they're very wealthy and they're very well off, but are they truly happy in their personal life? What are they missing? And the same can be true for people in poverty. Yes, you know, they're feeling a lot of poverty, but what is it that they actually have that keeps them going? What motivates them to see a brighter tomorrow? And everything in between. You know, I'm very fortunate to have to be in the position that I'm in today, through both the family I was born in, even though it's not necessarily high class by any means, but I've had my basic needs met my whole life, even though there were moments where that was up in the air. And I've also just worked really hard my whole life. And with all of those elements coming together, currently I live a very humble yet fruitful life, where I don't like material goods. I don't need material goods. I don't really care about cars or material possessions. I just want experiences. I want to forge relationships with people, especially as someone as introverted as me, who has a very difficult time with social skills and has a very difficult time engaging with the outside and being in crowds and being around people. I just really do love constantly growing, constantly feeling this, not just physical soreness after a workout, but a soreness of emotional and mental growth, if that makes sense. Knowing that I'm constantly growing and expanding myself beyond what I'm currently capable of, my current limitations and boundaries. And the more that I assess myself and reflect and start seeing these are my weaknesses that I'm slowly transitioning into strengths, I think that's what really gives us a lot of power as people. And I'm going to get off of my soapbox now. I have missed a lot. I was told when I moved to North Carolina that to prepare for hurricanes, the stores sell out of bread, milk, and eggs. In Florida, all alcohol got sold out prior to hurricanes. So, I mean, I believe that. There was a period of my life where I was an alcoholic. And I actually recently was finally able to move away from marijuana or weed. And my entire life I've always been addicted to something to take me out of the pain that I was currently in. And I've always figured something that's really important is I want to be able to look at darkness square in the eyes with my own strength, not avoid it with being intoxicated or being high or distracting myself with other things. I want to be able to grit my teeth and push through rather the hardship of life. I think that's what ultimately builds more of a sense of inner value. And it doesn't mean to say that there aren't still things that I'm addicted to. One would be I tried an experiment to see if I could go 15 minutes without reaching for my phone, and I did that for one day, and at no time throughout the day was I able to successfully complete 15 minutes without reaching for my phone. Even if I didn't look for it, I reached for it, and that was enough for me to know that I have this impulse to constantly keep checking it, even though I have no social media outside of YouTube, even though, there's just a bunch of things. So I still have plenty of work I have to do, but it's a work in progress, So I get that people would buy a ton of alcohol because there's something terrifying happening. You don't want to be, I get the phenomenon that you don't want to be in this completely depressed state of soberness as terror is washing over you, quite literally. So I get it, but I still think that's sad. But why bread, milk, and eggs? Wouldn't you want non-perishables? Because I'm pretty sure milk and eggs are absolutely perishables, and bread goes bad once it's been oxidized. I don't know about that. Especially if you're without power. Are you just gonna Sylvester Stallone it or Rocky and just chug eggs without power, or are you gonna just spark little fires? Like, how are you gonna cook it? Just a thought, would you ever turn live streams into Zoom meetings? I joined in on a Patreon member's Zoom chat yesterday. That's an interesting thought. I've never really considered it, so I have no stance on it. But it is something interesting to think about, so I will think about it. For the record, Hurricane Floyd just threatened. It didn't actually hit Disney World. Oh, well, that's nice. But even then, I can only imagine the terror that one must be feeling through that. That could be a new series you feature on Patreon. Now what I really think of. But seriously, I agree, people cannot handle being criticized because they've been handled with kid gloves. Yeah, like it. Even my sister, when I was portraying this thought to her, she was saying, yeah, just do all of the music videos that you couldn't post on YouTube, and know that your Patreon are people who pay money to see you. So they appreciate you as a person and don't just want somebody to feel the same feelings with. And you can just give your direct, open, honest opinions about things. And I thought that was actually a pretty interesting concept. So I will absolutely give that a go sometime in the future. And and I'm not going to say that everything on that channel is just going to be me like slamming pieces into the ground. I still love a lot of music, and I love being able to complement a lot of things in music. There's just a lot of things that I also pick up on that either I might not personally like, or I have learned that is not necessarily good for you when performing. So there's a lot of things that I would also really love to comment on that I just don't for the sake of the videos. Can't wait to see the BTS of Voice Play's next song coming up. I have no idea what Voice Play's next song is. I know it's Halloween themed because it's October. I have no idea what to expect, but I'm pretty excited for it. I can't think of any Nightmare Before Christmas song they haven't already done yet, though. So they did This Is Halloween, Jack's Lament. What's this? They kidnapped the Santa Claus. They've pretty much done everything from the Nightmare. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do next. There was a line from the TV show Fame. How can we know when we're good if we're afraid to open we're bad? That's exactly my point. The idea of it is that, especially in this age of social media where everybody is trying to appear righteous and to be accepted by their peers, everything is constantly, we live in this age where everything is just constantly being monitored. And this idea of really trusting others is, I at least feel, is in this slow decline, because you don't know if your so-called friend is not recording a private conversation between you two to give to other people to really show your true colors or something. Like, the idea of it, at least to me, is that when I engage with someone new, I talk to them as honestly and as openly as I can. I don't admit my entire life story right off the bat, but, you know, there's a really good example of this is that there's a YouTuber that I really, really loved who actually helped inspire the channel. And he's the only YouTuber I have a Patreon to. And he's a pretty small channel, like in comparison to very big channels. I think he has 30 or 40,000 subscribers. Anyway, in one of his videos, he said that to his friends, he was admitting a lot of things that could even potentially incriminate him. And they asked, why are you telling me these things when I know that, when I know these really terrible things? Like, why do you trust me? And he just said, well, trusting you is my choice, and what you do with the information is your choice. And the idea of that being, it's a really beautiful thing when we trust each other enough to open up about issues that are plaguing our lives, and with those issues, that could be anything from feelings of guilt because we feel a certain way about something, or feelings of shame, inadequacy, fear, terror, feelings of aggression even. Not too long ago, I remember feeling completely overwhelmed and inundated with feelings of resentment towards something. And I was talking it out with myself, obviously off camera, and I was reflecting on where that stemmed from and what it is that I could do to push through that wall that I just came face to face with, that very dark wall. And ultimately what I came to was, these are things that just exist. It's really that simple. You know, it's not a matter of what can I do to never feel these again? It's more of a matter of, I know that I am capable of producing great good in this world by choosing to do what I genuinely think is the right thing, even if it's at my own inconvenience, which I have already proven to myself and continue to prove to myself. But I also know that I am capable of producing great evil. Even though I haven't committed to any particular action that I deem to be great evil, I have committed to heavily selfish actions. I have committed to actions that have either knowingly or unknowingly have hurt a lot of people. So it, you know, if a person is claiming that my views are absolutely right and, you know, look at how righteous I am, it's more of a self-righteousness, and they're not out of the woods. There's a lot of secrets that people don't share out in public, and it falls under the umbrella of, what is it that, or rather, how do I phrase this? You never truly know someone. It's very rare that someone really even knows themselves. They just experience things without really giving it thought or understanding as to where it might come from. And you never really know what someone is going through. And that's not just in terms of experiencing certain levels of hardship, but there's, you know what? I'm going to read a quote that I have on one of my whiteboards. And this falls under one of the other quotes that I read from the same author, but this is a different quote, and I find it to be very important. It doesn't matter what we expect from life, but what life expects from us. We are questioned daily and hourly by life. Our answer must consist not in talk and meditation, but in right action and right conduct. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. When a man finds it's his destiny to suffer, he will have to accept his suffering as both a single and unique task. He will have to acknowledge the fact that even in suffering, he is unique and alone in the universe. No one can relieve him of his suffering or suffer in his place. It's his unique opportunity that lies in the duty in which he bears his burden. And this is a quote by Viktor Frankl, who was both a medical doctor, but a philosopher and concentration camp survivor. So if anybody knows about what it's like to go through suffering, at least mental, emotional, and physical anguish, it's that guy. And that kind of quote really moves me, just in the idea of, it is about taking personal accountability for your actions, both the good things and the rewards that you reap from them, alongside the negative things and the corollaries that you reap from them. You know, your entire fruits basket is not going to be filled with just splendid fruit. You're going to have a few very rotten fruits, things that you've sown into the earth that have grown to be very bitter and spoiled. So the idea of it, just understanding where your faults are and how you're going to grow and become better through that, is through having an open mind. And that comes with having people who you think have it out for you, or you think are fully against you, even if you think the world is against you. Which is a little bit of an over-dramatization, but even then, there have definitely been people in my life that I've once thought of as people that were very close to me and people that I have adored and loved deeply, but have ultimately come to resent me and even hate me. And there was a time in my life where, at the very end of one of my relationships with one of those people, she came to me and she was just telling me all of my insecurities, all of my faults, and that was such a huge slap in the face, but in one of the best ways possible, because after the time it took me to grieve the loss of that relationship and to understand how it is that I'm possibly even going to pick myself out of the mud from that, I started reflecting on her words, where even though they came from a very resentful and bitter place, there was a lot of truth, honesty, and a lot of emotional weight behind her words. And that really spoke to me. And I started reflecting on, okay, she commented that I was not academically smart or intelligent. Okay, what can I do to change this? I should start reading. Okay, so I started reading. Very small increments. Reading drove me absolutely nuts. It always gave me headaches. I hated the whole process. But I picked up a book that I thought I would like, and I just started reading it. I ran through a lot of words that I didn't know. My vocabulary was very limited. So I started writing down vocabulary words. As of this day, in my phone, I have a little tab, a note tab for vocabulary words. And whenever I run into a new word, I've organized them alphabetically. I just incorporate the new word into the line. And now I have 39 pages, I believe, of vocab words that I had not known before, that I wrote all down on flashcards, and I tested myself vehemently, constantly, and I started growing my vocabulary. When I made the choice that I wanted to go out and visit Japan, I said, okay, I'll at least start learning hiragana and katakana, which are the two alphabets outside of kanji. And I just started running through that, just on a flashcard once a day, writing out the alphabets. And it's not even to say that I even know the language, but at least knowing how things are pronounced and knowing the flow and the dialect of the language, I feel can help me tremendously when I actually do go there, alongside actually learning key phrases and keywords. So, and I'm sure that things will adapt and grow over time the longer I'm there. And just different things like that that will ultimately, like, better me. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that someone who really resented me told me all of my insecurities directly to my face, it would have been very easy to just suppress those insecurities and not develop them, but rather just accept them as weaknesses. And to me, there's something wrong about that. I don't want my weaknesses to be weaknesses. The more I can transform my weaknesses into strengths, the ultimate stronger I will become. And I think that's very important. It's recognizing that I do have human emotions just like everybody else does. I have a difficult time portraying those emotions, or when I do, they are extricated in a way that is off-putting or offhand or cavalier in some cases to others. And it's very easy to misconstrue what it is that I'm trying to do as a person. And that's why my current friend group, which has consisted of 5 friends for a while now, has been exactly that. For these people understand the kind of person that I am, and even though I'm incredibly awkward, and even though I might rub people the wrong way, I might even rub them the wrong way sometimes. They're very patient, considerate, understanding, and our views are tremendously different. The way they live their lives are almost antithetical to the way that I live my life. But I see their character and I see the way that they treat others, and it makes me so thrilled to know that these people who are so vastly different from me can still take the time, still have admirable qualities that I take into my own life and try to incorporate in my own life in a way that's beautiful, you know? I missed a lot. Let me catch up. Criticism is helpful as long as it is meant as notes to improve. Kindly giving notes as opposed to people just being mean. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely received criticism in a way that is really considerate and presented in a way that is considerate. And I've also received criticism in a way that's just been presented as very harsh, very direct. You are wrong. This is how to fix it. And honestly, at least in terms of the way that I like to learn, I actually prefer the latter. I don't like it when teachers or colleagues or even peers or just people that are in the same field that are very well experienced and knowledgeable, I don't like it when they sugarcoat things, because I don't understand the principle that way. I get you're trying to be nice, but if you just tell me directly, this is what was wrong, or what you just did is what's wrong, this was not good by any means, this is how audiences will perceive you, this is how this type of crowd will perceive you, and this is how you're going to fix it. I love that directness, and it sounds very harsh, and I've had plenty of professors in music school who have told me that when I delivered them drafts for something, things that I've worked really hard on, and they just say, quoting, "This is absolute shit. I would fail you immediately if you gave this to me." And just said, well, for starters, these things are wrong. And it sounded beautiful, it sounded nice, the idea of it was still a little rough, but I thought it was ultimately pretty well put together. But it was because of that directness, that harshness, and that bluntness that further motivated me to actually produce the greatest final performed in the class. And if it wasn't for that harshness and directness, I don't know if I would have been able to produce such a great piece for my final. And that teacher and I kind of had a really good love-hate relationship, where at the end of the class, because that was a final that I spent a month and a half working on, especially the last 2 weeks before it, because the idea of it is that you completely compose it, 60 seconds worth of non-rule breaking classical music for 4 instruments, or 1 polyphonic instrument with two other lines, either for 2 other instruments, and you had to have all of that work done weeks beforehand so you could have your musicians. You yourself could not play it. You had to have other musicians come into the class or be a part of the class and perform it. And so that requires weeks of work, because other students have lives and other classes that they have to do. So I was putting up so many all-nighters just to get that done, and I would not have the drive and dedication to get that done if my teacher didn't come to me directly and say, "This is horrible, this is shit, why are you even doing this?" And when I was in Germany, and I've mentioned this story before, this incredible Germanic baritone, he had an extensive career performing German lied, which is a type of music, and a type of vocal music, and he was incredible. Everybody in the room, even the professors, had great respect for him. And I remember one student went up, and her voice was lovely. She performed very well, but it seemed a little dead in terms of the performance, and the interpretation seemed a little weird, but overall it seemed like a fine performance, something that you would find at any university. And he just looked at her dead in the eyes and said, "You need to find another profession. You are not going to make it in music." And honestly, I think that that was the kindest thing he could have said, even though it came off to be very harsh and egregiously rude. But the reason he said that is because throughout the performance, he saw a specific way that she was engaging with music, which was not teachable. She didn't have, like, her voice was lovely, but it doesn't have this resonance that you need to have in stage performance. Peter Barber and I actually commented on this in our interview together, where if you don't have a natural resonance, you are not going to make it as an opera singer. That's just how it is. And even though she had a lot of skill and a lot of technique, she couldn't be on a big stage because her voice would never carry to the back of the hall. And he was just so direct and blunt and forward with it. And it was harsh, but I understood it, and she understood it. And it was hard to accept at the time. But there's another show that I love, absolutely love. It's called Vinland Saga. And there was a line in it from a very cowardly character that I deeply respect, where he said, "I wasn't strong enough to silently accept their mocking of me." And that was really profound to me, in the idea that he committed to actions out of rage, resentment, and personal frustration because he didn't have it within him to accept his own weakness. And it's just things like that where I think a gentle approach to teaching someone something has its benefits. But just in terms of my own personal experience, I think the direct, blunt honesty of something, if you are strong enough to receive it and take it with pride and strength to say, yes, okay, this was wrong, I'm going to correct it. When I went on stage and performed for that same Germanic baritone that just completely ripped a new one to that other vocalist, he came on stage and he was just ripping into me, my interpretation of the piece and the way that I was performing the piece. And to me, I accepted that as a huge compliment because I was watching his masterclasses before. And throughout the entirety of the masterclasses, if he really didn't like something about my voice, about my diction, and about my translation, he would have ripped into those things first. But instead, he peeled back all of those layers and started just talking about, or rather, instead of the pith of something, he was just talking about superficial things, like my interpretation, like my performance. These are things that can be corrected. And I took that as a huge compliment. And it's getting to know the kind of person that you're working with, understanding their eccentricities, but ultimately really seeing the value in what it is that they're trying to convey. We all have different tastes. There's a lot of people that I love that I don't. There's lots of people. There is music that lots of people love that I don't care for, and the opposite as well. Absolutely. There's a song out there in the world that most people I've ever shown the video to hate, but I love it. Not because I think it's amazing music, but because I think it is fun music and whimsical music, and it makes me happy. But nobody else loves it, and that's fine. Jealousy is most valuable to me when I use it as a spur for me to take steps to improve my own situation because I'm the only one who can. That is absolutely true. Good on you, Blue. We all have different backgrounds and have been exposed to different things. If we love the same things, where would we learn and enjoy new things? Absolutely. It wasn't until Dan's reaction to Dan and Tommy that grew to like and understand their music. I'm so glad that I could do that. Like, again, growing up, I was exposed to two types of music. Classical music and the Beatles, essentially. But I was also just generally exposed to classic rock, but primarily the Beatles. And that was it. And it wasn't even until high school that I was even aware of other music. And it wasn't until college that I started exploring other music. And it wasn't until years after I graduated college that I started diving into the boundless realm of all types of music and really appreciating all types of music. You know, like, there's some genres of music that I don't really care for, but that doesn't mean that all songs within that genre are things that I'm not going to connect with. There absolutely are some rap songs, even though I don't heavily connect with rap music, that I really, really dig. And, you know, there's a lot of dubstep music that I really don't care for. I don't care for the genre as a whole, but there is a lot of really great dubstep out there. And, you know, just to judge something so broad as an entire genre of something or an entire bevy of something, just by your own limited experience of something, I think there's a lot of pitfalls in that. My parents are cooking eggs and stuff on their gas grill, trying to use as much as they could before everything went bad. Now they have to throw it all away. That sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. Or, rather, I'm not sorry. There's nothing for me to apologize for, but that really sucks, and I wish your parents the absolute best in terms of their situation and their safety. I feel you on the cannabis. It has value in its creating a safe space in an uncertain moment. It helps blend me into the moment, so to speak, like an ombre perception applied to a vast existentialism. My 30s have seen me turn the lens inward. It's been a humbling experience, but helps me practice gratitude and understanding how important it is to grow when you are planted. Some of us late bloomers. Yeah, man. Like, I can tell you just from my own experience, from me personally, and this is especially true when I went to Germany, because I could drink in Germany when I was 19, and that's when I went. I was at, like, the moment we finished all of our music stuff for the day, there was a local bar right next to our hostel. I went there every night. And the bartenders and the staff there loved me. Not because I was there a lot, but because I was interesting. I was an American. And I just got so drunk every night. And it was a nightmare for me. But it was the only way that I could even process what it was that I was experiencing. Because I didn't have the emotional or mental intelligence to take responsibility for my actions and to even understand what it was that I was doing. I had no sense of self-awareness. So it eventually got to the point where I was able to get off of alcohol, but then I started having a food problem. I could not eat or even drink water for days at a time. And because every time I did, I felt so nauseous and threw it up. So that's when weed came into the picture, and it helped me develop an appetite. But then after a while, I started getting a grip on my life. I started really understanding what it is that I needed to do and the kind of person that I ultimately wanted to become. And when I started looking at all of my habits, I thought, well, I no longer need weed anymore because I can now start eating 2 meals a day comfortably. But at that point, it had already become an addiction, not because it necessarily has addictive qualities like nicotine does, but it was part of my ritual, my daily routine, my habits. And there's a book out there called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, which perfectly explains how powerful these types of habits are. And it was just so tough to get through. But eventually I got to a point where not one day, it was a gradual buildup, but on the last day I smoked, I thought, wow, I feel absolutely miserable smoking right now. I am not happy experiencing this high. Everything that I used to benefit from is now working against me. And there's just nothing for me in this anymore. Not to say that it doesn't work really well for others or that it doesn't have tremendous benefit for others. It's just not something that I can engage with anymore because it just makes me miserable. So ultimately that has served to my benefit, and I am able to eat 2 meals a day comfortably, and I'm still building up to 3, but it's it's a whole work in progress, and it all depends on the kind of person that you are. Some people just never get out of this loop, and whether or not they want to or don't want to, but to each their own. And it's just personal accountability and what you're willing to do for yourself. It's not The Nightmare Before Christmas. It will be a nice surprise. Oh, the voice play. Yes. Oh, cool. Yes, I'm excited for that. By all, Mom is calling from Asheville. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Take care, Rebecca. As I've said before, I love your vocabulary. Oh, well, thank you. I love your making the effort to improve yourself. Well, thank you. It is arduous, and there are many days that come across where I find it much more difficult to do that. But, at the end of the day, even on the days where I feel like I'm not really improving myself, I know that I have in some capacity because I work out 6 days a week, or I'm constantly putting out content for YouTube, and I'm always monitoring it 7 days a week, but I'm making content for it 5 days a week. So no matter what, every day, I either have a rest day where I'm monitoring it and with my family and just enjoying my time with them, or I'm working out and I'm putting out content and I'm improving myself in some way. And if there are better days where I can go out somewhere and just sit down, study, invite people to play a game of chess with me, or just talk about life, talk about philosophy. I've met many interesting people that way. Just people approaching me because I put up a little sign saying, let's either play a game of chess or let's just talk about life. And there's a variety of people I've met through that way. And I ultimately, bettering yourself is very tough, but it's the idea of, if you guys have worked out before and you experience soreness the next day and it's not debilitating, that soreness, if you can convince yourself that that soreness is a great feeling, that that this soreness only exists because you're pushing yourself beyond your boundaries and limitations, then there's something almost addictive to that. But in a very positive way, in a way that promotes further action of it. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing. So even on the days where you don't feel like you're really putting out enough work, like I do every day, I've actually really been struggling with that in recent times where I really don't feel like I've been working as hard as I should be. But then I look back, and my family also consoles me on this, just in the sense of I am working very hard. It's just I have very specific expectations that impede further growth. But it is figuring out how do I meet my own expectations without burning myself out too quickly. And like I mentioned before, it's very nuanced. It's a very nuanced path. Nice to see you. I'm late tonight. Well, it's all good. Thank you for being here. The difference between getting critique from people you respect and strangers who don't know what they're talking about. Yes, and that is exactly why you have to discern for yourself. What is this issue about? Is this a general human experience that any person who has experienced this very broad topic that I am currently experiencing, is their perspective valuable? Probably, because it's a very general human experience that you're experiencing. But if you're talking about something much more targeted, like it's kind of similar to a sporting event where you understand the rules of, say, football and American football, and you're cheering for your team, and the moment they do something wrong, you're like, they should have done this, and things like that. When, in all honesty, you've never played football in your life, and all of these players are, just to make it into the NFL, let alone get on a team that's a really good team, you have to be the absolute best of the best to even make it into the NFL, let alone make it into the best of the best teams. And the same is true for The Voice. You're not, when I comment on something regarding The Voice, I like to think that I do my best to make a good job of separating technical prowess and subjective bias. And that just comes to the point of, okay, if I can separate these two things, how is it that I want to comment on this particular issue? How is it that I want to engage with this particular subject or topic? And yeah, it's really good to know that if you're a musician, getting advice from another musician, even if you don't think that they're as good of a musician as you, still might have really valuable insight because their upbringing through music was different than yours, and they might have a different perspective on it. But you as a musician are not going to receive music advice or criticism from the random schlub number 4 who decides to comment. It's, you gotta be able to take all criticism with an open mind and open heart, but really only allow the valuable perspectives, the perspectives of those who have also engaged in similar hardships you have, into your life. It's very similar to trash talk in that way, where trash talk, especially in sports, is the game within the game. People don't necessarily like trash talk because it's rude, but I think it's essentially absolutely a part of the game, just in the sense of, but this is very true just in civil society, where if somebody cuts you off and they start screaming at you or whatever, even though you were obviously in the right, it comes to the point of, trash talk is only effective if you let it affect you. If you just let it brush off of you, there's nothing. Because all their screaming is just going directly to a wall. And they're going to feel stupid because you're not giving them anything to work with. You are living your life peacefully, happily, and without their pissy attitude. So, or you could be exceptionally creative and dish it back to them in a way that isn't necessarily to strike and destroy them, unless that's what you want to do, but more just completely deconstruct their psyche through very creative and specialized trash talk or insults. I've seen that happen in not just sporting events, but in real life, where a very witty person that I know was going up against a very shitty person that just approached us to comment on a conversation that was just happening between him and myself. And the repartee that my friend had just to communicate with him directly just completely dismantled his entire philosophy on life. And it was just so admirable to watch in real time. So trash talk is only effective if you let it affect you. Yes, receive direct criticism. Get thick skin and assume it was meant to be constructive. Then use it. Yeah, absolutely. Ultimately, I see a lot of people trying to build this ideal utopia society, and that is not only not possible, but it's very dangerous. Human beings will never conform to any one particular way of thought. That has been proven, and to try to convince everybody needs to have the same values, ethics, principles, morals as you do in your community because you genuinely think you're right is only going to provoke greater change, greater dissonance, and ignore the nuances of other people. Absolutely. So, to get a thicker skin, to even listen to the criticism that you know is useless, I think that's really valuable and important. I really enjoy and appreciate the music theory aspect of your videos. I learned something every time. Aw, well, thank you, John. Industrial designer here. If you're not strong enough to withstand brutal critiques, you're not strong enough to surpass fierce competition. Yeah. I think that entire view is true in any competitive field, in advertising, in design, in engineering, in music or the arts. If there is a job out there that you want, I guarantee somebody else also wants it. And now all of a sudden it comes to the point of, well, who's a better fit for the job, ideally. If we're not talking about hiring people on the base of race, then, and just talking about who is the true best fit for the job, which is, again, an ideal, then you need to be able to accept harsh criticism. You need to know what your weaknesses are. You need to know what it is that you are truly capable of in order to expand upon that further and make you forcefully get to the position of, I know that I am the best person for this position, and making them see that. So that it's a very tough and arduous thing to do, but I definitely think that by doing so, it makes you that much more capable and that much more durable in withstanding not just that career field, but life as a whole. Before we break for the day, can we please bid Chris Christofferson a fond farewell? Chris Christofferson. I am, based off of the context of your message, I am assuming he died. And that is tragic to hear. And I bid him a very fond farewell. My condolences.
I agree. Maybe we can get Dan to react to one of his songs.
I'll definitely give it a listen, but if it's not something that I feel is ultimately either going to perform well or something that I just don't have much to comment on, then I can't put it out, but I will at least give it a listen if that's any consolation. I'm a surface pattern designer, art that goes on fabric and wallpaper, and I'm working on developing a thick skin to handle people's critiques. Yeah, honestly, there's some people that are so good at puncturing through even the thickest of skins. And I think just developing a thick skin is a life process. One of my role models, one of the people I look up to the most, was my grandfather. And with a name like Patsy, he had to have thick skin because he was constantly bullied. And from the point I was essentially born to my entire relationship with him, he was always the strongest person I've ever met, and the kindest and most compassionate, but you did not mess with him. He looked frail, but his punch and his handshake was so devastating. I remember shaking his hand, and he shook it lightly and crushed me. That's why when I shake people's hands, I've worked a lot on my grip strength since then, and I shake hands lightly, but it often hurts other people when they give me flimsy handshakes. I give a very firm handshake, even though it's still very light. And depending on how strong the other person's handshake is, I'll modify the strength to it. But my comfortable handshake typically hurts most people I handshake. So I've softened it, and it's still a little uncomfortable for people, but this is the softest I go without it being just completely flaccid. But the idea of it just being getting a thick skin is something that you just develop throughout the entirety of your life. So the sooner that you start, the more it'll grow throughout your lifetime, and the less other people's cavalier or offhand words will affect you. Schlub number 4. Can we get that on a t-shirt? New merch coming soon. Schlub number 4. That was actually something I was thinking about, actually having merch, but I think that's something way down the line. But that's something to think about for the future. All right. Well, I feel like this live stream has gone on long enough. I want to thank all of you guys for being here. It really does mean a lot to me that all of you are here watching these videos, watching these live streams, engaging with them, and just having a good time with me. I really do appreciate you guys being here. Thank you guys so much. And I will see you guys next week, where the new cycle for video content, including gameplay, is coming out. Oh my gosh. I'm just going to comment on that really quick. I have been filming Kingdom Hearts content, which is my favorite video game series of all time. And it has been amazing going through that game again. I have loved every single second of it, and I am so excited to put out that kind of content. It's easy to edit because there's not a ton of it, and it's just the game on screen with my voice in the background, and it's just fun, chill, humorous gameplay. I love the vibes. It makes me feel so good. And I hope you guys join me for that. If you guys just want to stick to the music videos, that's totally fine. I don't expect a ton of people to transfer over to that kind of content. But I've been having such a good time with it.
And I'm so thrilled to put that kind of content out to see how it fares on the channel. I'm currently in talks with another YouTube content creator to do a collaboration with them, so we'll see how that goes. And other than that, yeah. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to chat with you and everyone else. Thank you. Likewise. Good evening, good day. Have a wonderful time. Likewise. All right. I hope you all have a wonderful day or night or evening or wherever it is that you are. And I can't wait to see all of you in the next video. Take care, everyone.